Welcome to this explainer on SOC metrics. So, if you've ever wondered how cybersecurity teams actually measure their success, how they bring order to just absolute chaos, and keep an organization's digital assets safe from threats, well, you're in exactly the right place. Let's get right into it.
Let's kick things off with a little thought experiment. Just picture starting your shift as a Level 1 SOC analyst. What's worse? Logging in and immediately drowning in 80 unresolved alerts overwhelming your queue right off the bat, or facing a suspiciously quiet queue with 0 alerts for an entire week.
It kind of sounds like a trick question, right? Because honestly, both extremes are absolutely terrible. On one hand, having 80 alerts is literally going to overwhelm you, hiding the actual dangerous threats behind a massive wall of noise. But on the other hand, seeing 0 alerts for a week, that doesn't mean your network is magically safe. It usually means your SIM, your core detection system, is completely broken, or you have a severe lack of visibility, and that leads directly to undetected breaches.
So today, we're going to break this down. We'll start with the overwhelming alert queue, decode the core SOC performance metrics, look at the triage timeline, and finally uncover why all these numbers actually matter for you. Okay, jumping into Section 1, the overwhelming alert queue and how we go about filtering the noise.
Just as a quick refresher before we get into the heavy data, an SOC, or Security Operations Center, is a dedicated team with one main goal: protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of an organization's digital assets. They do this by developing, receiving, and triaging alerts. Essentially, they're hunting for that one real, critical threat hiding inside an absolute ocean of false alarms.
And that brings us to Section 2, Core SOC Performance Metrics, where we're going to decode this alphabet soup.
To actually filter that massive ocean of noise, analysts rely on some very specific data points. First up is AC, or alerts count. This is pretty straightforward. It's just the total count of alerts received. Now, ideally, a Level 1 analyst should see between 5 to 30 alerts per day. If that number gets too high, the analyst gets totally overwhelmed and becomes way more prone to missing actual threats hiding right there behind the span. Next, we've got FPR, or the false positive rate. You get this by taking your false positives and dividing them by your total alerts. Basically, this metric tracks the percentage of system noise, typical harmless IT activity, that your systems mistakenly flagged as a dangerous attack. Now, what's really interesting here is this 80% threshold. Look, a false positive rate of 0%? That's impossible. It's just not going to happen. But if it hits 80% or higher, yeah, that is a serious problem. When the vast majority of alerts are just fake, analysts develop severe alert fatigue. They become way less vigilant and literally start treating everything like spam. When this happens, it requires urgent false positive remediation to go in and actually tune your detection tools and rules.
Moving right along, we have AER, which stands for Alert Escalation Rate. This one is your escalated alerts divided by your total alerts. You see, senior Level 2 analysts rely really heavily on Level 1 analysts to filter out all that noise and escalate only the actionable, threatening alerts.
A good alert escalation rate usually sits below 50%, or ideally even better, under 20%. This metric is just incredibly useful for evaluating a Level 1 analyst. A low rate shows the analyst is experienced, they're independent. But on the flip side, you don't want them to be overconfident, trying to triage complex alerts they don't fully understand without senior support. It's definitely a delicate balance.
Okay, finally, we arrive at the most critical metric of them all, TDR, or Threat Detection Rate. This one is calculated by dividing your detected threats by your total threats. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that your threat detection rate must always be exactly 100%. Period. It is the only acceptable result. Imagine your organization faces 6 attacks in a year. You detect and prevent 4 of them. Great, right? But then you miss the 5th because of a broken detection rule, and you miss the 6th because an analyst accidentally misclassified the breach as a false positive. That gives you a 67% TDR, and that is a terrible result. Missing even one single threat can lead to devastating consequences, like a massive ransomware infection or just huge data exfiltration.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3. The triage timeline, also known as the ticking clock.
Now that we understand the daily filtering metrics, let's talk about what happens when a real threat actually strikes your network. When an attack happens, internal SOC teams or managed providers are bound by an SLA, a service level agreement. This is basically a signed document requiring quick threat detection, timely alert acknowledgement, and a very prompt response to the threat itself.
Let's look at a real-world scenario here. Imagine an employee is lured into running redline stealer malware. bam, the clock immediately starts. The SOC team's system took 12 minutes to receive and generate the alert. Then, one of the Level 1 analysts on shift moved that alert to in progress 10 minutes later. Finally, it was escalated to a Level 2 analyst who spent 35 minutes cleaning the malware and securing the machine.
And this brilliantly illustrates our 3 triage SLA metrics in precise chronological order. Step 1 is MTTD, or mean time to detect the initial breach. That was our 12 minutes. Step 2 is MTTA, mean time to acknowledge by the analyst. That was the 10 minutes. And step 3 is MTTR, mean time to respond, which involves actually isolating the device or securing the breached account. And that took 35 minutes.
Okay, moving to section 4. Why these metrics matter and taking a look at the big picture.
So this is your ultimate cheat sheet for SOC core metric targets. It just beautifully summarizes exactly how we measure the efficiency of protecting the network. We want an alerts count of 5 to 30 a day per L1 analyst. We need a false positive rate below 80%, an alert escalation rate below 50%, and a threat detection rate of absolutely non-negotiable 100%.
But here's the thing. Tracking these numbers isn't just a job for the SOC manager. As an analyst, you're right there on the front lines. You're the very first person to notice excessive alert numbers or a painfully high false positive rate. Understanding these metrics empowers you to actually propose improvements that make the whole team more efficient and make attacks far less successful. Plus, let's be real, consistently delivering good results and communicating these issues to fix the system is exactly what drives your career growth and paves the way for your promotion to a senior level 2 position.
So, as you gear up for your next shift and sit down at your terminal, I want you to ask yourself, if you looked at your team's alert queue right now, would you see a clear path to true threats or just an ocean of noise?